We sat there in the studio, Westlake Studio in Hollywood, and listened to the whole album. I felt devastated. All this pent-up emotion came out. I got angry and left the room. I told my people, "That's it. We're not releasing it. Call CBS and tell them they are not getting this album. We are not releasing it." Because I knew it was wrong. If we hadn't stopped the process and examined what we were doing, the record would have been terrible. It never would have been reviewed the way it was because, as we learned, you can ruin a great album in the mix. It's like taking a great movie and ruining it in the editing. You simply have to take your time. Some things can't be rushed. There was a bit of yelling and screaming from the record people, but in the end they were smart and understood. They knew too. It was just that I was the first to say it. Finally I realized I had to do the whole thing mix, the entire album, all over again. We took a couple of days off, drew a deep breath and stepped back. Then we came to it fresh, cleaned our ears out and began to mix 2 songs a week. When it was done, boom, it hit us hard. CBS could hear the difference too. Thriller was a tough project. It felt so good when we finished. I was so excited I couldn't wait for it to come out. When we finished, there wasn't any kind of celebration that I can recall. We didn't go out to a disco or anything. We just rested. I prefer just being with people I really like anyway. That's my way of celebrating. The 3 videos that came out of Thriller, Billie Jean, Beat It, and Thriller, were all part of my original concept for the album. I was determined to present this music as visually as possible. At the time, I would look at what people were doing with video, and I couldn't understand why so much of it seemed so primitive and weak. I saw kids watching and accepting boring videos because they had no alternatives. My goal is to do the best I can in every area, so why work hard on an album and then produce a terrible video? I wanted something that would glue you to the set, something you'd want to watch over and over. The idea from the beginning was to give people quality. So I wanted to be a pioneer in this relatively new medium and make the best short music movies we could make. I don't even like to call them videos. On the set, I explained that we were doing a film, and that was how I approached it. I wanted the most talented people in the business, the best cinematographer, the best director, the best lighting people we could get. We weren't shooting on videotape. It was 35mm film. We were serious. It felt so good when we finished. I was so excited I couldn't wait for it to come out. When we finished, there wasn't any kind of celebration that I can recall. We didn't go out to a disco or anything. We just rested. I prefer just being with people I really like anyway. That's my way of celebrating. The 3 videos that came out of Thriller, Billie Jean, Beat It, and Thriller, were all part of my original concept for the album. I was determined to present this music as visually as possible. At the time, I would look at what people were doing with video, and I couldn't understand why so much of it seemed so primitive and weak. I saw kids watching and accepting boring videos because they had no alternatives. My goal is to do the best I can in every area, so why work hard on an album and then produce a terrible video? I wanted something that would glue you to the set, something you'd want to watch over and over. The idea from the beginning was to give people quality. So I wanted to be a pioneer in this relatively new medium and make the best short music movies we could make. I don't even like to call them videos. On the set, I explained that we were doing a film, and that was how I approached it. I wanted the most talented people in the business, the best cinematographer, the best director, the best lighting people we could get. We weren't shooting on videotape. It was 35mm film. We were serious. For the first video, Billie Jean, I interviewed several directors looking for someone who seemed really unique. Most of them didn't present me with anything that was truly innovative. At the same time, I was trying to think bigger. The record company was giving me a problem on the budget, so I ended up paying for Beat It and Thriller because I didn't want to argue with anybody about money. I owned both of those films myself, as a result. Billie Jean was done with CBS's money, about $250,000. At the time, that was a lot of money for a video, but it really pleased me that they believed in me that much. Steve Barron, who directed Billie Jean, had very imaginative ideas, although he didn't agree at first that there should be dancing in it. I felt that people wanted to see dancing. It was great to dance for the video. That freeze frame where I go on my toes was spontaneous. So were many of the other moves. Billie Jean's video made a big impression on the MTV audience and was a huge hit. Beat It was directed by Bob Giraldi, who had done a lot of commercials. I remember being in England when it was decided that Beat It would be the next single released from Thriller, and we had to choose a director for the video. I felt Beat It should be interpreted literally the way it was written, one gang against another on tough urban streets. It had to be rough. That's what Beat It was about. When I got back to LA, I saw Bob Giraldi's demo reel and knew that he was the director I wanted for Beat It. I loved the way he told a story in his work, so I talked with him about Beat It. We went over things, my ideas and his ideas, and that's how it was created. We played with the storyboard and molded it and sculpted it. I had street gangs on my mind when I wrote Beat It, so we rounded up some of the toughest gangs in Los Angeles and put them to work on the video. It turned out to be a good idea and a great experience for me. We had some rough kids on that set, tough kids, and they hadn't been to wardrobe. Those guys in the pool room in the first scene were serious. They were not actors. That stuff was real. No, I hadn't been around really tough people all that much, and these guys were more than a little intimidating at first. But we had security around and were ready for anything that might happen. Of course, we soon realized we didn't need any of this, that the gang members were mostly humble, sweet, and kind in their dealings with us. We fed them during breaks, and they all cleaned up and put their trays away. I came to realize that the whole thing about being bad and tough is that it's done for recognition. All along, these guys had wanted to be seen and respected, and now we were going to put them on TV. They loved it. Hey, look at me, I'm somebody. And I think that's really why many of the gangs act the way they do. They're rebels, but rebels who want attention and respect. Like all of us, they just want to be seen, and I gave them that chance. For a few days at least, they were stars. They were so wonderful to me, polite, quiet, supportive. After the dance numbers, they'd compliment my work, and I could tell they really meant it. They wanted a lot of autographs and frequently stood around my trailer. Whatever they wanted, I gave them. Photographs, autographs, tickets for the Victory Tour, anything. They were a nice bunch of guys. The truth of that experience came out on the screen. The Beat It video was menacing, and you could feel those people's emotions. You felt the experience of the streets and the reality of their lives. You look at Beat It and know those kids are tough. They were being themselves, and it came across. It was nothing like actors acting. It was as far from that as possible. They were being themselves. That feeling you got was their spirit. I've always wondered if they got the same message from the song that I did. When Thriller first came out, the record company assumed it would sell a couple of million copies. In general, record companies never believe a new album will do considerably better than the last one you did. They figure you either got lucky last time or the number you last sold is the size of your audience. They usually just ship a couple of million out to the stores to cover the sales in case you get lucky again. That's how it usually works, but I wanted to alter their attitude with Thriller. One of the people who helped me with Thriller was Frank DeLeo. Frank was vice president for promotion at Epic when I met him. Along with Ron Weisner and Fred DeMann, Frank was responsible for turning my dream for Thriller into a reality. Frank heard parts of Thriller for the first time at Westlake Studio in Hollywood, where much of the album was recorded. He was there with Freddie DeMann, one of my managers, and Quincy and I played them Beat It and a little bit of Thriller, which we were still working on. They were very impressed, and we started to talk seriously about how to break this album wide open. Frank really worked hard and proved to be my right hand during the years ahead. His brilliant understanding of the recording industry proved invaluable. For instance, we released Beat It as a single while Billie Jean was still at #1. CBS screamed, "You're crazy, this will kill Billie Jean," but Frank told them not to worry, that both songs would be #1 and both would be in the top 10 at the same time. They were.